Okay, here we go. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1.
You are now tuned in to the world's greatest.
Podcasting from the Empire State, this is the Matt's Madness Show, a weekly podcast reviewing every Monday Night Raw and WWE pay-per-view.
Give me a hell yeah!
Yes, 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 yes.
And now, here to give a no-filler, to-the-point analysis for everything WWE, I present to you Matty C. And rest assured, that's best for business.
Welcome, guys, to Matt's Madness. Thanks for joining me. This is episode 28 in the books, and now we are only 2 weeks away. 2 weeks away from WrestleMania. It's closing in fast. And to be more precise, I guess, there's 2 more Raws, Monday Night Raws, until the big day on March 29th in Santa Clara, California. WrestleMania 31 is right around the corner. It doesn't feel like WrestleMania season, and I think a lot of you guys would agree with me on that. And we're going to get right into Monday Night Raw. We're going to go into the WrestleMania card. Not any official predictions yet. I'm going to wait until the week before, until all the dust is settled and the card is completely finalized. But before I go into any of that, I want to give you my contact info. It's questions@mattsmadness.com, and on Twitter, it's Matts_Madness on Twitter. It's Matt's Madness on YouTube, on Stitcher, on Spreaker, most media platforms. I'm there, whether you have an Android device, iPhone, I can be found. It's just Matt's Madness, except for the underscore on Twitter. So anytime you want to send feedback, questions, anything you have, topics you want to hear discussed on the show, please send it my way. That's the best way to probably get a hold of me and get in touch with me is my Twitter. So please feel free to do so. And I'm trying, I'm really trying here to be excited about WrestleMania. And this is WrestleMania season. I feel like it should just happen. It's a very strange WrestleMania season in that it doesn't feel like WrestleMania. The card on paper is acceptable for WrestleMania. I think it's just the hype that WWE has provided to us has been very subpar and very lackluster and confusing at times, and I think they're overthinking things, but let's get into it. And it was a Raw that was good at times, embarrassing at other times, bad at other times. It was up and down, and when you boil it all down, I'd give it a C plus, average to, I don't even know if I want to say slightly above average. Show. So let's roll into it here. And Randy Orton opens the show with the Authority in the ring and announced that Rollins and Orton would face Reigns in a 2-on-1 handicap match. And I heard this on the Wade Keller hotline through PW Torch. I definitely recommend you guys go and check that out. He's awesome at analyzing WWE, TNA, New Japan, Lucha Underground, NXT, really great analyst and really enjoyable to listen to. But nonetheless, he mentioned that there's no mention or no stink and no issue that anybody has of the fact that it's a 2-on-1 handicap match. They just announced it. Nobody was outraged. Nobody put up a fit about it. Nobody said boo about it. They just went with it like it's a normal thing. And unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of that these days in that it's becoming commonplace that handicap matches are every single week, and they're not special anymore. They're overdone, overexposed, much like Big Show and Kane. That's another topic. So, off my soapbox. It was kind of weird though that they didn't give this. They gave this match away right at the top. There was no rhyme for it. Whatever. Anyway, Kane welcomes back Orton in the Authority, mentioning how some didn't feel like he was one of them. and now their ignorance has been exposed. Big Show also welcomes him back. Jamie Noble, who is, to me, the highlight of the segment. Jamie Noble has it. I love him that they actually allowed him to speak and gave him a part. I love he's a natural heel, and he shined. He called Orton a snake, and it felt like he meant it. It was great. I love Jamie Noble in this role. I think they should allow him to have a little bit more of a voice and not just be the silent J&J security that take all the bumps for Rollins. So I really enjoyed Jamie Noble's interaction, and I hope he gets a little bit more down the line. Rollins then stopped Noble after he called Orton a snake and said that he wants to address the elephant in the room. Orton really isn't a part of the Authority, and that he's biding his time until he gets revenge on Seth Rollins, and that we almost feel like idiots now. Rollins extends his hand and says, "Welcome home." Orton shakes his hand, and then Orton takes the mic and says, "Thank you for the kind words, but what happened to the Authority?" And then starts going off on Kane, insulting Big Show, J&J, and then Rollins, and says that he's waiting for his moment to strike, and says that he's just kidding. And then Rollins goes on to say that they are going to dismantle Roman Reigns later on tonight. It was interesting. Randy Orton gave his plan right up front, and then said he was joking, but that's exactly what he was doing, and that's exactly what he feels about the Authority. Interesting way. And after watching all of this play out, I still feel that they should have just had Orton not rejoin the Authority, and just be on the attack of Rollins week after week since he returned. And I'll mention this later. It was a very anticlimactic turn for Randy Orton, and almost like a heel-like beatdown for 7 minutes at the end of Raw. I'll get to that. Bad News Barrett versus Daniel Bryan. R-Truth was on commentary. And I don't know what they're doing with R-Truth. R-Truth is entertaining. There's no question about it. R-Truth is entertaining. But I guess Vince McMahon gets his jollies out of the stereotypes of really black men in America, I guess, or just bad stereotypes in general, calling him, he's saying, R-Truth was saying he's picking potatoes. They accused him of being a thief, and just adding shizzle and everything. Just a lot of bad stereotypes, not a good feeling. And it took away from the match. I don't mind having wrestlers that can talk and speak eloquently on the mic behind the announce desk for a match. But this went on for 2 matches, and it didn't do anything but distract from the match. Michael Cole and JBL and Booker barely talked about the match in the ring. It really is insulting to the wrestlers in the ring, in my opinion. It's just silly banter between JBL and R-Truth. Fear of heights, about potatoes, just garbage. And Cole occasionally saying, "Oh, there's a unique move," and "there's a cover," things like that. Like, he just generalizes what's going on in the ring. Unfortunately, and Jim Ross has brought this up many times, that these announcers today, obviously due to Vince McMahon, he wants them to tell a story. And I understand that, but you need a play-by-play guy. I understand this isn't radio, but it adds believability, and it adds the suspense of belief to the match. In other words, you want to believe what you're seeing. In order to do that, you need to actually feel what's going on in the ring. You add lyrics. The lyrics are provided by the commentator, the announcers, the play-by-play guy. It's much like baseball. You have a color analyst and you have a play-by-play. Same concept. I want to feel what's going on. Don't generically talk about, "Oh, there's a cover. Oh, there's a unique move." Tell me what's going on in the ring. Tell me the story. Let me feel it. When I'm watching what's going on in the ring, but then the announcers are talking about potatoes and stealing and being thieves and fears of heights, you gotta be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. It's embarrassing. And that wasn't even the most embarrassing part of the night, believe it or not. And thank goodness, because as you guys know, I have Hulu Plus. So I only get the 90-minute version of Raw. And from what I heard and what I did see, I am very glad that there was a segment pulled out of Raw that was even more embarrassing than this. And I'll get to that in just a moment. So it was Bad News Barrett versus Daniel Bryan. It was a clean victory for Daniel Bryan, a short match. And Daniel Bryan, while he's winning match after match since losing to Roman Reigns, it's almost like WWE is giving us a consolation prize for now. Okay, well, Daniel Bryan wasn't in the main event. We don't see him as a long-term player. We know better than you guys do, so we're just going to give you a consolation prize and let him win every match. Probably win the match at WrestleMania. He's literally what the storyline was last year that the Authority said he was. They feel he's a B-plus player. He's a good hand, but not the face of the company, not the champion. And it's amazing that art imitates life, because that's exactly where Daniel Bryan is. And it's clear that Vince McMahon and his stubbornness refuses to allow the fans to force his hand this year. And there's a lot of people out there that feel this way. I myself included. And the whole theory about Roman Reigns and why he is being booed, and really now he's kind of just fans seem to be apathetic about him. And I'll get to Roman Reigns in a moment also. I'm going off track. I'm trying to go in order for Raw here, just so you can follow along, and it's a little bit of a concise order. So next on the Hulu version of Raw was the Dean Ambrose versus Stardust, with R-Truth still on commentary. Why? I don't know. It was Dean Ambrose versus Stardust, and I'm really liking Stardust lately. Stardust seems to believe in what he's doing. Stardust seems to actually feel it, and the fans are chanting while they're chanting Cody Rhodes. At least they're chanting something at him. They feel it. They believe in his character. I really have to give it. When he originally did this Stardust gimmick, it seemed awful. I'll admit, it seemed out of place. It didn't seem like him at all. But he's really taken to it and made it his own. And I give Cody Rhodes a lot of props for it. So kudos to him. There were, like I said, Cody chants. Dean won clean with Dirty Deeds. And then all the IC title participants came flooding out of the curtain and started to brawl. R-Truth got off commentary, stole the Intercontinental title belt. Everyone hits their finisher, and it ends up with the Bullhammer from Bad News Barrett. And he calls out Truth to give him his belt back. So Truth gives him a bag that Barrett assumes has his belt in it. But when you see the belt, you can even see it in the bag. It doesn't even look even close to the size of the belt. And I'm sure the weight wasn't either. So it was the size difference and the weight. How can you not know it's not the belt? You've held the belt hundreds of times. Just maybe I'm nitpicking at this point. And the whole believability. There's always that theme that I know I rant on it a lot if you've listened to me before, and if you have heard any of my podcasts and shows before, that I am all about believability. Whether you're watching a movie, whether you're watching a TV show, reality show especially, you want to emotionally connect and believe. And there's no more important genre than professional wrestling. You can call it sports entertainment. I call it professional wrestling. There is no better and more important genre than for believability to apply to than pro wrestling. That's all I'll say about that. Then we had the Conor the Crusher inductee to the WWE Hall of Fame. And very moving. Got me choked up, and it got a lot of, I'm sure, other people choked up. And I understand this is another good point that I heard earlier today, and I'll just kind of regurgitate it because I think it needs to be said. I am all for Conor and what WWE is doing for him and his family. I think it's awesome, and it's a great way to honor him. And the footage, as I said, was very moving. But the only issue I have with this is Stephanie McMahon going on there. And I understand she's the brand ambassador for WWE. But you have her in contradictory roles going on Raw as the bad guy, as she puts on her Twitter profile. And then comes on WWE TV, the segment before, talking about how great it was for Conor and literally starts crying. So just conflicting. And I have an issue with that. They couldn't have had anybody else do it? Really? Anyway, but it was a great segment. I'm all for it, and very, very moving segment if you haven't seen it. All right, so then we get Paul Heyman. And I am of the belief that Paul Heyman is the absolute MVP of WWE at this moment. He was the MVP of Raw, but upon further evaluation, I really feel that Paul Heyman is the MVP of Raw and of WWE. That is, his promo Monday, as always, was money. I think he has an intensity about him that, especially on Monday, that was off the page. I wish he wouldn't have described Roman Reigns' victory as defeating 29 other men, because he didn't. He got in halfway through the match, took a nap in the corner, and did a couple eliminations, ducked a Rusev clothesline, knocked him out of the ring, and Philadelphia showered him with booze. That's about how it happened. So, nonetheless, outside of that, I think this is one of, in my opinion, one of Paul Heyman's top 5 promos. Definitely. He brought a lot of realism, a lot of skepticism, a lot of things from the outside into the promo, and I believe he felt it. I believe he believes what he's saying, even though it's part of a storyline. He talked about Roman Reigns' family and really didn't make them out to be a family that has upstanding qualities or redeeming qualities, talking about how they would point to a group of football players and tell them he doesn't want if one of them's left standing, don't bother coming home. Talking about muscleheads on the beach. If one of them's left standing, don't bother coming home. Like, just beating up people just to beat them up. That's not a really redeeming quality if you're trying to make Roman Reigns a babyface, which they're doing a terrible job of, partly in booking, partly because Roman Reigns comes off awkward and entitled and really arrogant, that I think it's something he can't help, and it's part of his real personality as a person. And that's why he can't help but show it. And he needs, let me say this as clearly as I can. Roman Reigns is suited to be a heel. This guy has it for a heel. I'll expand a little bit more later. But Paul Heyman's promo was excellent. Talks about if they think they're going to pull a Montreal screw job, bringing in real elements, thinking, if Brock doesn't renew his contract and still wants to go out as champion, will Vince McMahon decide, nope, Roman Reigns is getting the belt, whether you like it or not? It's real. I mean, that was a real incident. If you don't know what the Montreal Screwjob is, I don't know where you've been in the past 20 years as a wrestling fan. So that was awesome to bring that element. It really just make you think outside the box, that a fact of something real could happen here. Talked about the UFC title. If Brock wants to simultaneously hold the UFC and WWE championship, that's what he'll do. Talked about Pacquiao and Mayweather. The 2002 match with The Rock, saying how he was a rookie and The Rock was going to tame the rookie, and look what happened 13 years later. This guy's a monster. The intensity, like I said, was off the page. And basically said that Brock owns the WWE Championship belt. So it's going to be very interesting to see exactly how this plays out and how WWE handles this. Reports have been back and forth on Brock Lesnar staying, Brock Lesnar going. It's so up in the air. It's so it's a story that almost is it's running parallel with WrestleMania, because there's so much that rides on the outcome of whether Brock stays or goes. I think if you put a gun to my head, I say Brock Lesnar stays. He's playing hardball. He's trying to get the most money he can get for the least amount of work with WWE. And really, great. You know what? Whatever. If this guy's doing it for the money, he's still got it. But this guy draws no matter where he goes. If he ends up going back to UFC, great. I think Brock has such a following, and I don't think it'll matter where he goes. This guy is going to make a ton of money. Ultimately, I think it will be with WWE. So then we had Ryback and Rowan versus Kane and Big Show. The crowd was absolutely dead, and more Kane and Big Show being overexposed. Big Show accidentally knocked out Kane. Kane loses, And if someone could give me the win-loss record for Kane over the last 6 months, if anybody could do that research, I'd really love to hear what it is. Because Kane has been just decimated with losses. So then Kane and Big Show argue. Steph comes out, says that both of them need to pack up their stuff and leave. And Big Show tells Stephanie to stop overreacting. At this point, this is before the last segment, obviously, I wrote this. I said that this sets up an Orton turn because now part of the Authority is out of the building. So this was a no-brainer for me. We then had Paige and AJ versus Brie and Nikki announced for WrestleMania with a very poor Flintstones reference from Brie and Nikki. I understand they're doing the movie or whatever, but anyway, just bad. Then we had Sting with some people thought it was a dubbed over voice. I guess it was just it was actually Steve Borden or Sting's voice, but it was just altered to make him sound a little bit more manly or cooler or whatever Vince has in his head. And basically, in essence, saying he's waited 14 years to take his vengeance, and he's the voice of justice and all this. I was cool with it. I understand Sting's mystique really diminishes when he starts speaking. He doesn't have the best promo skills nor wrestling skills at this advanced age. Sting's mystique is all about his look, his body language. That's how he tells the story. So, hey, I'm looking forward to the Sting Triple H match, and I'll get to that. There was no appearance by Triple H, so that's really the only build-up that we got was the promo from Sting. And it gave us a little background, and you needed to hear from Sting a little bit. So I'm really all for it. And we'll see where it goes from there. Axelmania. It's now 42 days. You know, I love this. This breathes new life into Curtis Axel, who was otherwise, I don't want to say dead, but really lost in the shuffle. I know he was put with Paul Heyman a while back, but he just didn't have it with Paul Heyman. He got a little bit of the rub from him, but he was really headed nowhere fast. But this new Axelmania, where he's doing the count of how long he's been in the Royal Rumble, it's now, 44 days since this is Wednesday, but I love it. I hope he continues with this and brings it all the way to the Royal Rumble next year when he can say it's been 365 days. And then if he gets eliminated, he can come back in and say, well, that was last year's elimination. I get another entry for this year. The fans are going to go crazy for this. I think it's going to gain a lot of momentum. The WWE just doesn't, they can't drop the ball on this. They have something going. The seeds for something really good for Axel, and I'm all for it. I'm loving this right now. Then we had a backstage Cena Rusev. The gist of it was Cena saying, if you say one bad word about the United States, I'll come out there and I will shut you up, basically. And we all know that that's obviously what was going to happen. So Rusev comes out against and faces Curtis Axel, squashed him, basically. And then started saying America is spineless. Lana was getting concerned, trying to stop him. Lana needs to take a bigger role. Yeah, she's hot off the charts from a physical standpoint. She's incredibly a beautiful woman. But she has the body language and the verbal skills to really take off. I feel like something's holding her back. I don't know if it's creative or if she just feels uncomfortable in the role, but she fits the role very well. I'm a huge Lana fan. Her and Rusev are an excellent pair, and I want to see Lana do more, get more physically involved in the matches, and talk more. I love she's got so much untapped potential. It's just, I feel like we're just scratching the surface with her. But she tries to stop him. Cena comes out and then puts the STF on Rusev. Rusev passes out. Eventually, Lana gets him to break the hold by agreeing to give Cena a match for the U.S. title at WrestleMania. And it was really seeds, I think, of a much more aggressive John Cena. I think we're starting to see the evolution of change for John Cena in terms of turning him heel. It's going to take a long time to do. In other words, if he's going to turn heel, it's going to be at a WrestleMania 32. Just planting the seeds for that now. But he gave a smile, like almost a sadistic smile we have very rarely seen from John Cena. The body language was very different. His aggressiveness was almost, I don't want to say disturbing, but from John Cena it was very uncharacteristic, and I'm thinking this is seeds of a heel turn a year down the road. because it is worthy of that big of a stage for it to happen, because so many people have waited for it to happen, and I think WrestleMania 32 is the stage to do it. We had J&J backstage continuing to tell Rollins that they have a bad feeling about Orton. Rollins continues to deny it and just say you guys are being paranoid and all that. So then Wyatt comes out, another long promo. I lost count how many times that we've seen a Bray Wyatt promo and a really one-sided feud up to this point. Really one-side build, I should say, between him and The Undertaker. Eventually calls out The Undertaker, saying that he is the new face of fear. He's going to walk over his bones at WrestleMania. All that. And then we finally... Wyatt looks in the urn that was on a table in the ring. He says there's nothing in there, and then puts the urn down. Smoke then starts coming out from the urn. And then we hear the gong. Finally. But I didn't expect Undertaker to show up, and he didn't. Then there's the light shining down in the ring with Wyatt's wooden chair just there. Lightning strikes the chair, sets it on fire. Taker's voice over in the arena saying, "You will rest in peace." Obviously accepting the challenge for WrestleMania 31 on the Titantron, saying something about coming around the mountain. I don't know. Some people have speculated that, it's a Johnny Cash quote, but if he's going to have new music, I hope he doesn't. I love his original music. Don't change it to Johnny Cash. I know he did at one point. I don't think he should. Just you're so late in your career. It's not, at this point, you're an attraction. Don't change what people love about your intro. Your intro is the best ever in the WWE, and I don't think you can't even argue that Undertaker has the best entrance. Don't mess it up. The music is perfect, so hopefully that's not the case. We then have the main event, Roman Reigns versus Orton and Rollins. J&J got sent to the back by Rollins again because they just were interfering, and it's set up. At this point, I knew it was a lock that Orton was finally going to turn. The crowd was really apathetic towards Roman Reigns, and Roman Reigns was almost an afterthought in this match. And it's disturbing to think that Roman Reigns was the afterthought in this match, because Roman Reigns is in the main event of WrestleMania. He's facing Brock Lesnar in WrestleMania for the title, and he was an afterthought in the match. He almost had no impact on the match other than spearing Rollins and pinning him. It was all about Orton turning. More of that in a minute. But Rollins was denied the tag from Orton, and then they didn't show it, but Orton flipped him the double bird. Apparently that's not acceptable anymore. Stone Cold wouldn't have survived in the PG era. Spear. Rollins got pinned, and then it was kind of an anticlimactic turn by Orton. We then had a 7-minute beatdown of Rollins. Finally gets his hands on him. He had the chair shots, the really methodical destruction of Rollins, and then an RKO through the table. I would have liked to see it in the ring and have Michael Cole RKO out of nowhere. That's kind of the tagline now, and I do love it. If you haven't seen the YouTube videos, by the way, of the just poor animation of Randy Orton RKOs on people from the internet, you got to go see it. Hilarious. But to me, it's almost like Orton has gotten his revenge. He beat up Seth so bad he got stretchered out, so didn't he already get his revenge? So what's the point of WrestleMania? I don't know. But in other words, it was a babyface night. A lot of the babyfaces, good guys, really got the upper hand, and in a big way a lot of times, and especially with the last segment with Orton kicking the hell out of Rollins. So next week it's imperative that the heels get their heat back. Next week I think we're going to see Sting and Triple H. I think we're going to see Triple H. We're going to see Triple H pedigree Sting, whether it's next week or the week after. There's no question. Triple H absolutely has to have the upper hand. He's gotten it. He's never, ever gotten the upper hand since this whole feud started back in Survivor Series in November. So it's been 4 months, and Triple H hasn't got the upper hand once. It's time to happen. Because what do you want to see at WrestleMania? You want to see the heels get their ass kicked. That's what you pay for. So we're not going to see the baby faces really go over until WrestleMania from here on out. That's my opinion. So I'm going to take a quick break. On the other side, I have some really interesting notes about Brock Lesnar. A little bit more Roman Reigns explanation, and then we'll wrap this thing up. So hang in there. We'll be right back.
And now, back to the Matt's Madness Show.
Alrighty, I'm just going to wrap this thing up before I head off into the sunset here. I realize that Brock Lesnar, we all know, Brock Lesnar has an extremely limited part-time schedule as champion. This leads me to believe, one way or the other, Brock Lesnar is losing the championship at WrestleMania, whether it's to Roman Reigns, to the shower of boos that WWE has to expect at this point, which I think is why they're just going to turn him heel at WrestleMania and line him with Paul Heyman and allow the boos to just be natural because he turned on them. But if they keep him a babyface and try to force the babyface character down our throats, it's going to be, as I always say, regurgitated. But I understand that Brock has a limited schedule, but when he's there, use him. Don't make him a statue in the ring. I understand he has an amazing presence in the ring. And I understand if that happened, if he was there on a regular basis and that happened every once in a while, I'd understand. But you're paying this guy millions of dollars to just be there and stand there. And the WrestleMania is only 3 weeks away at that point, and you're not going to have any kind of altercation with Roman Reigns. You guys are in the same building, and all you're going to do is have your manager, granted he's one of the best all-time talkers ever, and I said he was the MVP of Raw, and he is. He knows how to make an angle believable and real and bring in realism, as I said. And I already said that, so I won't repeat it again. But nonetheless, if you have Brock Lesnar, an absolute gem, a commodity, and you're paying him top dollar, maximize your minutes with him. Don't use him as a statue in the ring. If that had happened and then at the end, say Brock came out and F5'd Roman Reigns, I would have been totally good with that. That would have built a little heat. That's what you want. I understand the whole you don't want them to be physical until WrestleMania. That doesn't work all the time. Give us a little bit of something and maximize what you're there for. It doesn't make sense these guys are in the same building and have no interaction. Anyway, and if WWE has to work this hard to get people on Roman Reigns' side, it's clear he's not a natural babyface. People want to organically connect, i.e. Daniel Bryan last year. People don't want to be force-fed. John Cena, Roman Reigns, just a couple of examples over the last number of years. These guys, while John Cena is in a different realm, he has his cheers and boos, but he's established and he's respected universally. Right now, Roman Reigns is cheered by the following people: women and children and fans who just eat whatever WWE feeds them. They don't look beyond. In other words, they're casual, very casual fans. They look at the story and he's a good-looking guy. He's not doing anything wrong, and clearly WWE is trying to make him a good guy, and I'm just going to like him because I'm supposed to. The rest of us understand the fact that this guy has not earned his spot, and he's like I said earlier, he comes across as entitled. And he's got kind of a awkward promo set about him. He doesn't speak very eloquently and very. He doesn't speak in the way a babyface should speak. He is more suited for a heel. When Roman Reigns was back with the Shield, he was protected, and WWE hid his weaknesses. We all cheered him, and now that he doesn't have that protection, his weaknesses have been exposed. His downfall started with his injury, that hernia back in the middle of summer, and he had those awkward interviews with Michael Cole. Those, to me, were the start of his downfall. A heel run is needed. He has an awkward, entitled arrogance about him that just comes through naturally. He can't help it. It would suit him perfectly as a heel. I think he would come across as more comfortable as a heel. Then he could talk about how we're all entitled to our opinions, and he doesn't really care what we think. Well, you just told us you didn't care what we think. That's what heels do. So, hey, just turn him heel. He's begging for it. Brock Lesnar is a step away from being a babyface as it is. Just do the double turn. Do the double turn. It is coming. I hope so. And I mentioned Cena's STF. It was applied tight. It looked good. And I think it's seeds of a heel turn at WrestleMania 32. Now, I'll leave you with this. Apparently, there was this segment that I have to go back and look, where this was left off Hulu, and from what I've heard, that's not such a bad thing, that New Day came out and did, I guess, kind of a dance, and Big E's facial expressions were apparently just downright embarrassing. Now, these are the kind of segments I'm talking about that are killing WWE, and these are the moments when you sit there, and if you have friends over that aren't necessarily wrestling fans, and you're watching this with them, these are the moments that you're embarrassed to be a wrestling fan. When you have Brock Lesnar in the ring, and you have The Undertaker in the ring, you have Triple H in the ring, you have John Cena in the ring, you have The Rock in the ring, these guys make it believable and make you proud to be a fan. Not that you should care what people think, but when you sit there and you feel embarrassed for the people on TV, that's pretty bad. And another example of that is the Bunny that had a match from Adam Rose's little group there. That's just embarrassing. It's not a comedy segment. It's terribly done. And apparently Big E's was just awful. So I don't want to end on a sour note there, but to bring things back up, it's 2 more Raws until WrestleMania, guys. 2 weeks until the biggest show of the year. I think that this WrestleMania card on paper is good. I think it's acceptable. I just think that the promo and the build-up could have been done a lot better. Namely, Orton's return, that was very awkwardly done. He attacked the Authority, but then rejoined the next night and then turned on them again. It's confusing. It's such a windy road that they don't need to go down. I know things don't always have to be straightforward, but sometimes it's overthinking things. You don't need to overthink things sometimes to try to fool us, to try to do it just to do it. I don't want to, and I guess they're thinking we don't want to be so simplified and predictable. Predictability is not a bad thing. Not all the time, but if it's the right thing to do and it's easy to follow, I don't want to have to tell you, don't tell me how to make the watch. Tell me what time it is. I'm there to watch entertainment. I'm there to watch and get emotionally invested in a match. I don't want to hear about performances. First of all, don't tell me you're entertaining. Yeah, that's a whole other issue. But I'm there to follow a storyline that's easy to follow. And when I get confused or embarrassed to be a wrestling fan for segments like Big E and the Bunny and awful comedy segments that are heavily scripted, those are the moments that kill you. But it's WrestleMania season, guys. If you stuck with me, I do appreciate it. And as I said, we're looking to do an app down the road, an exclusive app for Matt's Madness. I'm going to try to get back on Blog Talk Radio and do some live shows. I'm going to do that before WrestleMania so that we can have a pre and post show for WrestleMania to take your calls, to take your opinions, to talk about whatever you want to talk about, because I'm sure, win, lose, or draw, WrestleMania is a huge deal. And it brings back fans that aren't fans necessarily during the year. It has name recognition. People buy tickets before they even know what's on the show. So it's a huge deal. And I think we should be excited. It's WrestleMania season. Even though I feel like this is just a setup for WrestleMania 32 in Dallas when they want to try to break the record, the attendance record. I get all that. But it's still WrestleMania season, guys. There may be a few surprises coming our way. Vince always likes to do a surprise at WrestleMania, and I think this year won't be any different, even though I know a lot of people are down on the card. There are all a lot of positives to look at, so thank you for joining me. I'll be back next week for the final, the final, before the final Raw, heading into WrestleMania. So thanks for joining me. Questions at mattsmadness.com is my email. And Matts_Madness on Twitter. I'm on Spreaker. I'm on Stitcher, iTunes. Obviously, mattsmadness.com is the website. So thank you guys for joining me, and I'll talk to you next time.